As difficult as it is sometimes to choose the best movie of all time, the truth is that the movie that holds that title was released over 8 decades ago, and it still hasn't been topped. The list of best movies of all time will change depending on the source, but there are titles that will be found in every list. Movies like The Godfather and Casablanca are some undisputed titles among the best movies of all time, and the number one spot will more often than not spark discussion. However, there's one movie taking the first spot on almost, if not all, lists, and although it was released 84 years ago, it still hasn't been topped: Orson Welles' Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane is still the best movie of all time. Still from Citizen Kane with Orson Welles in a white suit. Directed by Orson Welles and written by him and Herman J. Mankiewicz, Citizen Kane is a drama movie released in 1941. Citizen Kane has some elements from Welles' life, but it's mostly fiction, with its main character, Charles Foster Kane, Welles, being a composite based on William Randolph Hearst, Joseph Pulitzer, Samuel Insull, and Harold McCormick. Citizen Kane tells the story of Charles Foster Kane through flashbacks, as it begins with his death. It's revealed that, when Kane was a kid, gold was discovered through a mining deed belonging to his mother, Mary. To ensure that Kane would have a good life and be safe from his brutal father, she established a trust with banker Walter Parks Thatcher. This also meant that Thatcher would assume guardianship of Kane, who, once he turned 25, could gain control of his trust. Thanks to Thatcher's investing and the mine's productivity, Kane was, by then, one of the richest men in the world. What follows is Kane's rise as a newspaper magnate, his brief career in politics, and the many ups and downs in his personal life. Citizen Kane made history even before it was released, as its different and innovative trailer, which showed nothing about the plot and was, instead, a behind-the-scenes look, is now considered a cinematic work. Citizen Kane wasn't a commercial success during its initial release, but it was a critical hit, and still is, with a 99% critics score on Rotten Tomatoes. Citizen Kane is the best movie of all time thanks to its revolutionary cinematography and editing, its non-linear narrative structure, which was also innovative at the time, complex characters, and the themes addressed in it, such as power, loneliness, wealth, and greed, among others. Every aspect of Citizen Kane is strong and almost flawless, and even after all these years, it's still a high-quality movie. Why Citizen Kane still resonates after so many years. Orson Welles as Charles Foster Kane in Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane is an impressive movie, especially when remembering that it was Orson Welles' directorial debut. Despite being his first movie, Welles was given freedom to do his own story, put together his own cast and crew, and had the final word on the final cut, all of which contributed to Citizen Kane's quality and incredible legacy. As mentioned above, Citizen Kane covers topics that, unfortunately, continue to be relevant, such as power, wealth, and greed. Citizen Kane is about the American dream, criticizing its mostly void promises and highlighting the consequences of the pursuit of power and wealth, which, ultimately, as shown in Kane's later years, isn't fulfilling. Without getting into spoiler territory, the mystery that triggers the events of Citizen Kane, that of what is Rosebud, gets into themes like nostalgia and happiness, which not only add depth to the story but also help the audience relate to it even after all these years. On top of that, Citizen Kane is still one of the most influential movies ever. Citizen Kane's influence on later movies explained. Charles Foster Kane in front of a portrait of himself in Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane made film history not just thanks to its quality, impact, and timeless relevance, but also because it changed film forever. Citizen Kane was innovative in its camera work, editing, and visual narrative, with iconic scenes like the boarding house one, a brief masterclass in depth of field, the breakfast scene, and the Hall of Mirrors near the end of the movie. Citizen Kane's non-linear narrative structure is now used quite often in both film and TV, along with unreliable narrators, camera placement, and long, continuous takes instead of close-ups and constant cuts. Through Citizen Kane's camera work and editing, the team behind the movie added more drama and visual and emotional depth to the story. Another key component of Citizen Kane and one of its most influential elements is Welles' use of space, which takes me back to the above-mentioned scene at the boarding house. Welles used deep focus, keeping all elements in the scene visible for a more complete experience. Using the boarding house scene as an example, the audience can see young Kane playing outside in the snow while his mother negotiates the terms of the deal with Thatcher inside the house. In terms of narrative, through multiple viewpoints, Citizen Kane builds a complex and ambiguous portrait of its main character, without falling into the narrative trap of revealing everything at once.